And so I love scenes 20 through 25 in here, that we really get into some meat now of things that we can do differently in our world to have a higher level of success with everybody. And so, Beth, you're first on my list with a mic hot. You ready to go?
Woohoo! Let's get it started. And might I remind everyone, when it's so easy to slip into complaints and grumpiness about circumstances that we find ourselves in, this is Mindset Morning, and we start the world happy, looking for positive in every situation wherein the universe is always conspiring for our success. And the more we pour into each other, the more we all benefit. And when we complain, we become a garbage dump. Just FYI, my take on the start of the day. I also wanted to record my thoughts on something that was said yesterday. And I would like to challenge the whole concept of faking it until you make it. In my past life, or one of my past lives, I was a concert pianist. And in order to do something well, you practiced it as if you were performing it, right? You slowed it down until you got it right. You didn't practice garbage because that's what happened on the stage. Garbage came out on the stage. So when you fake it till you make it, at least in our minds, we lose coherence with our head and our heart. There's a disconnect because we believe we're not acting with integrity, and it comes out. However you think it doesn't, it does. People see it, they feel it. And I don't think you guys have to fake it till you make it. You already are there, and your brains and your hearts are already in the right place to start everything that you do with integrity. So I would, and maybe that's an unpopular sentiment. I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it. And I think that leads into our conversation today about the book and where we were taken in the next chapters.
So can I say something? Oh, okay.
Beth, is the judgment around the concept of faking it. I think what, Agnes, and I know what I have put into it is go through the correct actions, do the right things, even if you're not doing them at the best they can be done. If we go back to the 4 agreements, which we did last February, it's always doing the best you can. And with Agnes, it's always doing the best you can on the things that you should be doing when it comes to caring on people, loving on people. So I think there's a middle here, because I absolutely agree with you. We shouldn't just be faking it, like being artificial. And I think our concept of faking it, let's just take it to conversations, is follow the model, do the work, even though you're going to make mistakes and make errors, and get better by continuing to follow the model until you don't make the mistakes or errors. I hope that's
faking it, though. That's not faking it. You're doing your best.
Amen. And I think that's where the language of fake it till you make it, what we're really saying is do it, do the best that you're capable of, and keep following the model until you're doing the best that can be done, period. Carrie, you were next up with the mic, and then I heard client, and then I've got Ann.
No, I didn't realize it was on. I'm sorry.
And then I've got client, and then I've got Ann. Client, buddy.
Nope, you guys covered it really well. I'll keep quiet.
And then I've got Ann.
It's me. Lovely. Well, I'm really glad that I get to reply to Beth's. And I was the one who said fake it till you make it. And I absolutely love your take on that, Beth, because I am pretty wholehearted and pretty enthusiastic about the things that I do in the world. And so I think that that's exactly where you're saying it is. You can't fake it. Like, you can't show up and be like, oh, I love you, you're so great, right? Like, we feel that. So I've been teaching my kids Spanish since they were very little. I'm not fluent. I don't have a perfect accent. My daughter now at 25 is practically fluent, but we live in a town where we have a Latino population. And when we would be in the grocery store when she was 8 and 10 and 12, I would say, say lo siento when you need pass rather than excuse me. And she's like, Mom, I don't want to say it. They know I don't know it. And I'm like, they will appreciate that you're trying. And time after time after time, she has seen that when she uses her Spanish, that even though she feels like a faker, she feels like a fraud, right? Like that, she is embraced for her attempts at it. And so I think that, like what Russ is saying, but there's a gradient here. There's like a massive gradient, but I think there's also like, are we doing it with our heart, right? Am I like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm gonna sure give this a try, and I'm gonna come at it with as much heart as I can, even though it feels artificial and lacking in integrity. I'm gonna try and do it with as much integrity as I can. So I love what you said about that, Beth. Like, because I think that you and I are on the exact same page. Yeah.
So right? I'm going to speak and then I'm going to be quiet the rest of the time here. We think our thoughts, we put them into words, and then our words create our reality. Mm-hmm. When we say fake it to it, we make it. That's the words are the problem. And you totally nailed it. You're totally acting. Everyone here is acting with 100% integrity. Don't sell yourself short. Speak your reality into existence with real, thoughtful words. That was my only take on it. Thanks for clarifying, Ann. Good job.
Excellent. And so who else from the content? Celeste, my dear. What do you got from this 20 to 25?
Well, I'm going to add to this idea of when you are in a setting where you're speaking in a language that you don't know, the fact that you make the effort, like my example would be if I go to a restaurant and I'm speaking with someone that I know speaks Spanish, not English as their primary language, I will always say gracias. And my gracias is about as nasty as it can come out. And they'll immediately respond, de nada. And, sometimes they say it so fast, I'm not even present to understand that they just said, you're welcome. And yet I think about it and I think, what a pleasant exchange that just was. I experienced something that even though it's really foreign to me, it is blessed upon the scenario. And then I think about, and I'm translating this into our industry and this business, is as we speak, I brought this up last night in my mentoring session. When you speak, the elements that you say need to stay in tune with the person you're speaking with. So it is really critical to remember, don't be using the acronyms that we see so commonly in our industry and think everybody knows this. They don't. So take it down a step and slow down your speech so that that other person can catch up to you and what you're speaking about. To me, that's where you get music. And I am not a musician, but I feel like language is my instrument. And that's what I always work with my people and say, you have the gift of being in charge of how the conversation goes. It's imperative that you slow down and you actually listen to the person that you're speaking with. And when you ask them questions, really listen to them and their words and use that back at them. And they will listen more intently with you.
Well, and I think...
Did you say language is my gift? What was that? You said...
Language is my instrument.
I want to make sure I get everybody in here, and I want to definitely nail one piece of Celeste for everybody. And that is this. When you finally got into the listening point, that's where the fascination comes in. That's where what Agnes is talking about. And that listening comes, as you also said, from asking the right questions or asking questions, period. So Nafritha, you were up, then Shara, and I know you're hanging out there too, client.
So a few thoughts came to mind. I was trying to put it in a format to relate, but just listening to you guys think about this whole idea of the faking it till you make it, right? And then kind of like reframing that where you are actually acknowledging that I'm doing this thing and being careful with the words that we speak, right? Like what Beth said, because that is like the most important part of it. And it made me think of this idea of where does that come from? That fake it till you make it, right? And I thought about Cam. From my understanding, Cam shows up from a fear perspective. And I think that fake it till you make it is somewhat of a one of those fears of something, right? Maybe not doing it well, right? Maybe not doing it like others, or I don't know what that is, right? Trying to kind of dissect that as I listen to you guys speak. But what I wrote down here was that um Cam is kind of coming from that fear of poverty, right? And he shows up, and as because I went back to Think and Grow Rich and tried to like dissect that fear of poverty. And so he's able to fight through a lot of it because he's still pushing through and showing up in spaces where he can be successful, right? So that fear is not like consuming his life. But overall, I'm thinking, why is it that he's just so about the money? And then as you read, you understand where he's coming from, that poverty. And in my mind, I've kind of linked that together with that thought of fake it till you make it. It's not coming from a growth place or a loving place, if we could bring that word into the room, right? Because this book talks about a lot about loving on people. So if we come from that loving space, and what I wrote down in my note, love is your leverage. If we come from the space of love, then we're showing up truthful. So when we say buenos dias or como estas or whatever it is, or whatever twang we got or whatever way we can say it, it's embraced with love. And I've experienced that too. And that's why the native Hispanic will look at you with a smile and be so warm to respond to you. And it's not that you're faking it. You're showing up in love and trying to exercise something that you actually enjoy. You're a little afraid of how it's going to sound, and maybe you're not saying it right, so they may not even understand you. But it's not fake. It's really you. So, like, listening to everybody speak, that kind of like came to me along with what I had wrote down, right? So when we show up, are we showing up in fear of any of those things, right? The fear of poverty, fear of death, fear of, I should have opened the book and had it. I don't remember the rest. But we kind of got to be mindful of where we're showing, like, what is the root of where we're coming from? Because if it's from love, then we will continue to flourish no matter what. And we'll be watered. And we wouldn't even care about how we're judged because afterwards, I bet your daughter's like, wow. So I bet now she speaks more when she sees, she's like, well, you said now she's fluent, right? But that, I think that's the like the repetition that we use to reprogram our RAS or our auto suggestion to eventually feel like I am a Spanish speaker. One day
So
we'll get there, right?
let's tie it back into the content though, because we're bouncing on this love piece. And I think here's one of the key links that Agnes brings into the beginning of this section where we're using a different word with the same energy behind it. So Cam, who is Cam in love with?
Himself.
Cam. And so Agnes, man, she cuts right through it. You're fascinated with yourself rather than being fascinated with all the other people. When you were falling in love with that significant other any point in your life, all of a sudden you were fascinated by them. You wanted to know more. You wanted to learn. You weren't talking about you. You were investigating them with a heart of service, a heart of care. This part of being fascinated, I want to hear what you guys dive deeper on that as well as the rest of this content. Shara.
Well, starting with the fake it till you make it, my posture was the curiosity, asking the questions. We either come from a place of self or we come from a place of curiosity. And Cam loves himself. You just segued right into this so beautifully. Um, One of the things that really stands out to me, I think we're dancing all around this in this little book. This book came before the other book, but at least I have a book now. And I only got through chapter 23, but right in that same area, Agnes gained a very different posture in Cam's eyes and even in Steve's eyes when her history came out, right? When they found out she had helped train pups that Smitty learned from them. And so their listening became different. They became fascinated with her, and even at a different level than where they started. So now the questions are starting to come from Cam. His fascination, his perspective has shifted slightly different, even though it's maybe a little begrudgingly initially. But it kind of shifted with that old saying, it's not personal, it's business. It's just plain false. Business is personal, personal, personal. And if you are out there listening to any podcasts, or if you're listening to anything different than what we're reading here, or doing your personal development, every single person is talking about relationship at this point, going deeper. And even in an economic forecast that I was listening to a couple of days ago, they were talking about a shift because of where we are in the market space, that we have an opportunity to grow deeper with our client base to help them know more. And I love that, because that's one of the things we do, like in our role play, is we're trying to get to, if I just want to lease, or I don't think the market condition is ready, is condition our own mind. So the RAS is really powerful. So anyway, that fake it till you make it kind of triggered me in the beginning to say, well, that's what I said yesterday. You got to be curious. If we're going to, one of the things that I can say, I may not have made bajillions of dollars, but I have staying power in any industry over the last 40 plus years in multiple different industries and multiple different market shifts. So with your mindset, you can create a foundation to trend, to shift, and to be what you need to be. And part of that remains being curious so that we can learn from everybody around us. So that's what I love about what we're doing here.
Well, curious ties right into fascination. They're kind of
Yes.
Required. You can't be fascinated if you're not curious. And you're absolutely right. You hit on a number of things. I mean, Agnes said very clearly, gosh, we got to have process. We got to have CRM. We got to have customer focused strategies, complaint handling, all important. And yet later on in the chapter, she was very clear. Well, baby, contrary to what the old school bureaucrats would have you think, business is a deeply personal endeavor. And it was so much fun because she was talking and Cam wanted to know about the do. If you really want to stoke your business till it burns so bright that everyone will take notice, there are two things you must be with complete abandon.
Yes.
And Cam's like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Don't you mean two things we have to do? Nope, it's two things you have to be. And one, be deeply fascinated by the life of every person, customer, employee, colleague, every agent that your business touches. And two, be deeply grateful for who they are. It doesn't say be deeply grateful for the ones that work out, the ones that answer or return your calls, the ones who give you feedback on your listings. It's all of them. And boy, is that an exercise. Carrie, I see your mic's hot. What do you got?
On my page 86, it says Cam is like, oh, well, what if I don't want to tell you anything? And I resonate with this very well. Like with all people, it's okay, sugar. I'll still learn about you trying. But if you shut me out, that's your prerogative. Most people, though, will blossom under the attention. Let's take your sales department, for example. And then he talks about all these things about how the sales department, like, no, he doesn't know anything about his sales department. He talks about earlier in the book how he has to like work his butt off just to force them to do anything, like, and he's not, and therefore, and his job is on the line. Like, so I just really like that. I really feel like, true, even if you're not telling me something, you're still telling me something in your silence. It's just that simple.
Well, and I love how in this conversation with Cam, Agnes drills, starts asking questions about his people. And he comes up with all these bullet points, and then it's a full page. And at the end, she says, that's not her story, that's her resume. Is that all you've got? He learned nothing about her. And then, Cam, and boy, I can see this. Well, I don't have the time to go into all that. We have a house to sell. We can't get to know these people that well. We got to get out. We got to go shop. Whatever it is, I don't have the time. I hear it all the time. And she says, time is not the problem. Desire is. This is about making choices to slow down, have the desire, and as she says, get fascinated with them. Beth, your mic is back.
I'm sorry, not sorry. We're in a uniquely personal business. And it's kind of blatant, right? Because we can't do what we need to do unless we talk to people. So it's kind of in our faces. But reality is that everything that everyone does is a uniquely personal endeavor. And if it isn't, it should be. Even the folks that are sitting behind their computers, programming and coding, it affects somebody somewhere. And unless you know how it affects that person, that real human, not AI, not another computer, unless you know how it affects that real person, you can't really be as effective as you might be. And Sharon nailed it, right? It's all about staying power. You can be mediocre all of your days, but the reason Sharon has staying power is because she's been astronomically successful at the things she's chosen to do. Not everything. I'm sure she's not great at everything. But the things that she's chosen to be great at, she's been great at because she wanted to be. And I bet you anything it had to do with the people, right? People. It's all about the people. And the better we get at doing the people piece of it, the better we're going to get at the real estate piece. I'm telling you, I talk fluent gearhead. I can talk to my people. I can't talk to everybody, and not everybody likes me. In fact, not even all the gearheads like me, but they recognize my authority in that tiny little space. And that's it, right? So what's your space? And how are you going to meet your people wherever it is that they are? That's the glory. That's the glory of it. And I see whenever you guys talk, it just lights me up because every one of you comes from this cool, authentic place of connecting with people. You're just afraid to do it sometimes.
Usually is the fair. And man, what fun, by the way. I mean, I challenge you guys going forward 2025, make it a priority that as you're following the DMD4, you're doing the dance with the database, which is just doing all your follow-up, which is where the wealth is anyway, the fortune's in the follow-up, that you get to know and document the personal stuff in your CRMs. You should know who their spouses are. You should know who their kids are. You should know home anniversary, personal anniversary, kid's birthday. You want to build a relationship with a consumer that's locked in, send their kids birthday presents, a card, love on their extended family, not just them, and watch the absolute magic happen. Hey, we got 3 more minutes here. Client brother, you are up.
So just want to spend 30 seconds and speak to what Beth said about authenticity. That is so, so correct. Be authentic. The other thing is my dad had a insurance guy when I was 5 years old. And Mr. Rosenblum sent me a card every day. I'm sorry, every year on my birthday until I was 45. I think that's when he passed away. Do you ever in your wildest dreams think my dad would go to anyone else besides Mr. Rosenblum? Oh no. Mr. Rosenblum remembered my son for 45 years. He got all our business. That's it.
It's a great nugget, man, and we all get to implement. So, what else do you guys have from the content? Lots of good stuff here. We've talked about the fascination. What else between 20 and 25?
Well, listening to them talk about authenticity, I had jot down here, which I believe it was in another book too, or somebody brought it into the room before, but you can hide what you do, but you can't hide who you are. Right. So that goes back to us being that authentic self. Right. And that's what she was telling Cam, right? As she continued to ask him the questions about his team. And all he knows is resume stuff. He knows nothing personal. All he knows is resume stuff. And she keeps asking more questions. And it's funny because Steve over there is like laughing away, like, haha, we're about to get to it, right? But it was like those were the things. And I guess in my mind, I thought to ask myself, am I asking myself those deep questions, right? So are you guys asking yourself those deep, uncomfortable questions to get you up out of the space that you're in to push you up into the next level? And then something that had came to mind when I was listening, in being that authentic self, I wrote, go with the flow until you can flow with a glow. Right. So I guess maybe that's a different way of the faking it till you make it thing. So you go with the flow until you can, wait, what did I wrote? Oh, go with the flow until you can flow with a glow.
Say that
And
5 times fast.
I know, right? But I think that's another a thing that I probably want to adapt more than the fake it till you make it thing. Because I'm not being fake. I'm being myself. I'm just growing into whatever that is so that I can do it in a more efficient way, right? But it's not fake. So glow with the flow until you can flow with a glow.
Well, let us wrap on that. It is Friday, so I know you all have some grow that you desire to do. So know everybody that 11 to 11:30, I run a private mindset mastermind with 9 people on building their organizations. These are my 9 from the last book and this book that I am focused on in 2025 of helping them get to their dreams. Part of that, though, is them doing the same thing and passing it down. So, no, starting in 2025, we'll go 11 to 11:30 with that small group, and then we're going to open that up from 11:30 to 12 for everybody else that truly wants to get some business growth, some wealth building done in 2025. So make sure you start getting that on your radar for 2025. Fridays, conversation time 2 to 5 is all about wealth building as well. I expect that room to have a lot of recruiting conversations as well as consumer conversations if you're not yet at your magic pending number.